Good morning, everyone. RV living with the geezer. And I'm just leaving the Lowe's in Boyd. Seems like I go there just about every day to get something. And I always come out with more than what I went in there for. So I don't think I'm going to run out of food anytime soon. But yeah, it's fixing. I just saw a few little drops on my windshield. They're predicting rain coming in here in a couple hours, and it's supposed to rain steady for 2 days. So be it, I guess. Yeah, tomorrow I'm gonna go down there at 10 and get that tooth taken care of in Hazel. I just hope there's no thunderstorms so Blanca won't freak out too bad, but I gotta get it done, so I'm gonna go do it. And yeah, a couple of y'all mentioned in my last video, said, well, your back must be a lot better and you didn't talk about it. Well, it's a little bit. It's improved a little bit. I just figure there's no use talking about it. Won't do any good. So anyway, that's that. But I'm heading on home, and I just want to tell you, point the camera in the right direction, geezer. I thought about a story about a friend of mine. I just saw a policeman turn into the middle school up there. So if I point this camera down here, because I'm in a school zone, that'll be why. Anyway, I was sitting there on their porch yesterday, and I played some music. Here Comes the Rain. And that song Old Hippie by the Bellamy Brothers came on. And every time I hear that song, it brings back memories of a fella that I worked with in Bernie driving a school bus. When I got out of the fire department, when I retired in 2001, 3 days later, I had a job lined up to drive a bus because to keep my health insurance. Because when we retired, our health insurance wasn't available to us anymore from the fire department, and the bus drivers had all the benefits the teachers had. And I love that job there in Bernie. But anyway, talking about, I'm not going to mention his name, and you'll understand why when I get into the story. I'll just call him by his initials, R.C. Okay, so that reminds me of my old buddy R.C., that old hippie. He was a Vietnam vet. R.C. was, like in that song, and he had a little ponytail, a little wiry guy, and he lived in a tiny old beat up travel trailer. It's smaller than mine, out on the Guadalupe River. Somebody owned a ranch out there, and they just let him park out there. And he drove a school bus, and he'd been driving a school bus before I got there. So he was one of my guys that I rode with that showed me the ropes on how to do it. So I rode with RC quite a few times, and he was an excellent. They were all good bus drivers. I'll do a video on bus drivers, school bus drivers, someday, because I have the utmost respect for those people. I did it for 10 years, and I tell you what, that's not an easy job at all. But it's a very rewarding job. Anyway, let me get back to RC. Okay, RC, he was an old hippie, and he just looked like it and played the part. And that's what he did for a living, was drive a school bus. And back in those days, you didn't make that much money doing that. I think it was like $12-13 an hour, but you didn't get but maybe 5 hours a day, So and he'd do little odd jobs around the school, and also for other bus drivers, people that had a little more money would hire him, and he got by okay. Well, RC took some time off to go to a wedding in Arizona. All right. So he was gone for a few days. It was over a weekend. And he came back, and everything's, back going good. And we down there, bus drivers get randomly tested for drugs, okay? What they would do down there is you would leave on your morning route, and you did not know when that lady was showing up. And she would show up maybe once every 2 months. And we had probably 40 drivers, and she would choose like 10 or 12 to test, just random. And when you got back from your morning route, you'd walk in the door, and they would tell you not to swipe your time card out, that you were, you're still on the clock because you had to stay there. So we came in one morning, and I got picked, and RC got picked, and so 8 or 10 other ones. And so she would do one at a time. You'd just go in the restroom and pee in the little bottle, that she had. And so RC went before I did, and so I went and I did mine, and then she doesn't test it right there, but the test, they send it into the lab. Y'all all know how all that works. Hey, I'm not even breaking for livestock. I'm so into this story. But anyway, I walk outside. I get through, and I walk outside parking lot, and he had a old beat up little small Toyota Tacoma pickup with a camper shell on it, which I think he slept in that camper shell when he'd travel around. And I mean, this thing was beat up. And I remember on the back of the camper shell, on the back window, it said, he had a sticker back there, it said, "Free Tibet." Okay? And RC is sitting in his driver's seat with the door open, with his feet down on the pavement, leaned down with his elbows on his knees, if you can picture this, and with his head hung down. And so I walk out there, and I said, call him by his first name. I said, "Hey, well, what's the deal, man?" He goes, "Calvin, you remember that wedding I went to here, a couple of weeks ago in Arizona?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I won't be working here anymore, man." I said, "What?" And he says, "I smoked excuse me, but I'm going to quote him, I smoked a shit pot full of weed out there with," it was his best friend that was getting married, okay? And I mean, he maybe, might have not been his first marriage, because at that time, RC was probably about 50 years old. He's about the same age I was, we both about the same age. And he went to Vietnam and I didn't, okay? But, and I said, "Oh, man, don't tell me that." And he says, "Yep, I sure did." And marijuana stays in your system for 30 days, folks, if y'all don't know that. So, yeah. So he knew he was busted. So he walked back inside, and he told the director that there was no need on him waiting for his test to come back, that he was resigning immediately. And he did. And it came back, and it showed that he had it in his system. So, and he told me, he says, "Man," he said his daddy lived over in New Braunfels, which was about 40 miles from Bernie. And he said, the worst thing, RC told me this, he says, "The worst thing about this whole thing is, Calvin," he says, "my daddy told me just last weekend he was so proud of me that this was the best job that I've ever had in my life." And so, I mean, he was going to make a career out of it, He was single. It didn't cost him much to to live, you know, and so anyway, but it has this story has a happy ending. I guess he called his buddy that that got married and out in Arizona. His buddy owned a business, a very successful business out there, that they took in old, not RVs or travel trailers, but they took in old mobile homes, and they gutted them, and they completely renovated them. And he said, RC called him up, and he said that his buddy said, well, what's the problem? And he said, well, I'm out of work. And he said, no, you're not. He said, get in your truck and come on out here. He said, if you need money for gas, I'll send it to you. He said, I'll set you up with an apartment, and you live out here and work for me. And he did. And he's making like, at the time, this was in, let's see. I went to work there in 2002. He only was there about a year after 2003 or so. I haven't heard from him in years, but he evidently it all clicked for the guy, and he was a nice guy. Everybody liked him, you know. He was one of those guys that everybody liked. But yeah, so that's my story. When I hear that song, Old Hippie, by the Bellamy Brothers, I have that on my playlist. I love that song. And I just noticed that my gate job where I'm keeping Dixie in is still holding up, but she had moved one of the rocks already this morning, so I put it back. My son's going to have to jump on that first. He just hasn't had time to do anything. The first chance he gets, do a little bit better permanent fix on it. I've got some ideas how to fix it. But yeah, so it worked out for old RC. But yeah, everybody there missed him though. He was a good dude, good old hippie. So anyway, guys, I'll let you go. Peace out. Yeah, peace out. That peace sign. Think of RC and his new career. He might own that company by now. But, stay blessed and stay positive. Rain's starting to get a little heavier. We'll be talking to you later. Bye-bye.